Here we go again. Remember the units command will tell you what your units are in the drawing, but we're still going to want to go ahead and start from a known place. So we're going to, for doing problem 4-8, new. You can either get a drawing or a template as you go in here, but you got to know where to get stuff. For you, of course, it's out in the K drive. It should come up as your short list. For those of you at home, got to know where it is, and you're going to pick up, in this case, it is an architectural drawing. Architectural meaning the base unit is inches. This has got a little note in there. I'm going to get rid of it. You can even start to do all kinds of different things. We're going to see. Don't want to do that here. You can go ahead. I'm selecting across, I'm hitting the delete key here. I'm now going to draft a box 10-foot square. This time I'm going to use the rectangle. I'm going to actually go to the view, and we're going to not explode things because 3 in a row are going to be of import. So I'm going to go from 0, 0. If I don't put an at there, it's absolute, and then I'm going to say at 10 feet, 10 feet. Escape, 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 Z space, E space. I've got that. Now I just have to offset 1 foot. That's going to get me my 8-foot box. And then offset again. Offset 1 foot. That's going to get me my 6-foot box. I'm going to take these two right away. Left click, and learn to pull down and put them on the right layer object. And this, of course, is the external box. This is the box that's on the inside, and maybe this one is the one I'm going to want to explode, but I don't need to explode it to do things like this. Line, shift right click from the midpoint. And since these are boxes, I should be okay to the midpoint. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on the center line layer. Now this next thing to do here is not necessarily to show you how you would do it. You'd probably go from a midpoint to a midpoint, but let's get used to grabbing something, left clicking, spacebar, C for copy, 90 degrees to get that. And in this case, we don't, and let's also get used to the fact that there is no midpoint. Just here, the midpoint is there, because visually you have a midpoint does not mean there is one there. So I'm just going to offset, in this case, 2 feet to there, and 2 feet to there. And the same thing there, 2 feet. In this case, I didn't put a foot, so it would be an error. I'm going to erase that out. I would have to say offset 24. I will regularly point out that very often in CAD you want to draft actually extra lines and then get rid of them. I'm going to point out again that we're going to draw our circles by center. In this case, that circle is kind of an interesting one because its diameter, center diameter of shift right click the intersection right there, and then 2 foot 4 inches, no space in between, and you can click on that. You can right click, change the properties. Again, you're going to see all kinds of different ways we'll learn, but the fact of right clicking and going to properties being the most, I guess, the most extensive, giving you the kind of one rule. And now really what all you've got here is a set of offset lines, believe it or not. There is a line. If we go to our view command object here, there's all kinds of different ways to do this, but I'm going to go align, shift right click from the intersection there to the intersection there. You see my ortho is still on. You want to learn to turn that off, and then I can just go offset through. So the next, through the shift right click the intersection, shift right click intersection. Now for those of you who are going to head off into SketchUp, I'm going to introduce you for the first time to a very comparable way to do offsets. This is not the same, and you'll see it doesn't work when you have multiple lines that you want to offset, but I can left click on something and then left click spacebar, C for copy, and then start moving it to where I want. That's basically going to work pretty well for those of you going off to SketchUp. Intersection, intersection. Now I'll also then show you we can do trim Right? In this case, the trim box is going to be this one there. Do undo because I didn't mean to do that. Trim, screw that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you notice here, trim. If I try to trim those, it's not going to let me because they don't cross anything. You'll come across that. You'll get frustrated. The answer is to just, erase them. Now I missed out one here. Offset through. Shift right click, intersection. And now as you go here, I won't expect you to draft it as I'm showing you here, but you can see that there is some rotational symmetry. So I'm going to trim, use that as my edge this time. And now I'm going to grab all of these objects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm left clicking, 7, 8. And then I'm going to left click, spacebar, spacebar. I want to rotate, C for copy. Now I can also change my base point because my base point is not one of the things that I grabbed on. B for base point. My new base point is going to be the center. Notice that it's great to grab the edge to grab the center, and then we're going to say 90 degrees. Now at this point your eye might be getting confused, so you can get rid of a lot of these other lines. So we can grab, essentially all that was necessary are those major lines there. We can grab each of those. Running out of time yet? Not quite. And I'm trimming. I'm trying to do an erase. E for erase. I should grab first and then get rid of, but I'm grabbing around. E is the erase command. And now what you're going to realize is there's now a bunch of trims. Screw that. That one gets trimmed through. This one gets trimmed through. This one gets trimmed through. That one gets trimmed through. And I think there you have it. Of course, I'm left clicking, hitting the delete key, realizing there's a million ways to go on this. I think that looks pretty correct. You have to look at the geometry. There's all kinds of different ways to do this. Just kind of introducing to the multiple and myriad ways to draft something like that. So I'm going to tell people to not necessarily watch this video before trying to draft this one yourself. But I'm not going to forget that I want to go say -V for view, and I'm going to go shift right click from the endpoint here. I'm sorry, -V for view, W for window, plot, view, first corner, shift right click from the intersection here, shift right click to the intersection there, and hopefully it remembered where it was. Now I'm going to point out, many of you should turn off, but I'm going to right now go ahead, turn off, go on for some who are in kind of getting out ahead. This next command is going to be to put something on a new layer. I'm going to put it on an in-living color layer. So right now, for the first time, we'll be drafting lines on top of lines, which is not a good thing, but I'm going to introduce you to the bpoly command. Bpoly command is to do lines on top of lines. It will make polylines. It will also make regions, and regions are things we can extrude. So I've made another layer current. I've used the bpoly. I've changed it to region, and I'm going to start just doing this. 1, 2, clicking on the interior points of all of my closed polygons. These are making lines on top of lines, which generally is not necessarily a great idea. Mathematically, it can figure it out, but if you're doing any type of GIS work or even many things in terms of keeping track of lots, you can go ahead and do this when you're finally done. Hit a space bar here. You see it's done the lines on top of the lines. I'm going to show you here another command up here on this ribbon is the isolate layer. That's going to isolate layer there, and now I just got one layer shown. This, of course, would give you an ability to extrude each of these individually, change the color, do all kinds of stuff. I will show you one thing to not get confused about is if you go back to the plot view right here, the layers are not put up. So that's, we'll talk about how we start using this command here, layer manager, as we start going into different layers. But that is problem 4-8 with a little extra. Thanks for listening.